Good morning, hello. I've got my notes on my phone that I'm going to use. Shit, I should open them. There we go. The night before my wedding, at about 11 o'clock that night, my wife and I wrote our vows. And then the next day at the wedding, we stood with our phones and did our vows holding our phones. So I know that this is terrible, but this is how I'm going to do it. Okay, all right, so I'm going to start with the Acknowledgement of Country. The Dawa people where I am, and the Yagamba people here. This land was never ceded, it's not ours. I think it's important to acknowledge that in the context of what I'm doing, because it's about connecting with the land and healing, so it's important. And I think quite a lot about Indigenous people connection to the land that we're on. Also, just throughout the presentation, I use a lot of this artwork. So it's Damien and Yilpi Marks, who are two Indigenous people. They're a couple in Northern Territory. All the way along, you'll see they've got some beautiful artwork, and that's available at Wentworth Gallery online if anyone wants to check it out. Okay, obviously the dream team. Obviously, I wouldn't be here without my supervisors. My funding is from an NGO, Primary and Community Care Services, or PCCS. So they do care coordination. So people come to them with severe and complex mental illness, and they coordinate care or socially prescribe within the community. We'll talk a bit more about them later on. Okay, so there's only one slide here from the perspective of researchers, and the rest of the presentation, I'm going to take you through the whole intervention as though you're a participant. So my research question is, can socially prescribed forest therapy improve participant biopsychosocial well-being? So there's a lot of research out there on forest therapy, evidence that it improves biological health, so things like cardiac function, pulmonary function, immune function. There's also evidence for psychological well-being, so improvements in depression, anxiety, anger, stress. In terms of social psychology or social improvements, they haven't been studied. We know, though, that health is a biopsychosocial thing, so social well-being is important. And the way forest therapy is run, it's done in groups, and in those groups you interact with people, you share your experience with people, and you actually do group activities together, and you cooperate. And social psychology says that all of those things make you bond with other people. So there's evidence to suggest that actually social well-being might improve when you're going through an intervention doing forest therapy walks. We're also looking at biological and psychological, even though that's been investigated, because so far it's been investigated in people who are generally quite healthy. It was developed for stressed office workers in Japan, but now it's still quite a healthy population that I looked at in this stuff, whereas our participants have severe and complex mental illness. And so we're kind of seeing in that population if it helps or not. So the design step wedge cluster, it's a randomized and controlled trial, but it's a little bit different to a normal RCT. In this trial, all participants do a 5-week control period and then a 5-week intervention period. So essentially they're acting as their own control. In terms of assessment, we're doing qualitative and quantitative stuff. So the quantitative, the main measure we're doing is the World Health Organization Quality of Life Questionnaire. And that asks about all aspects of your biopsychosocial well-being. And then we've added in some extra loneliness scales as well, because that's what we really care about. In terms of qualitative, after the intervention, I do interviews with participants, and that we're doing a process evaluation. So what we're trying to see is if people's well-being does get better, what's going on that's the case. For example, are they using more mindfulness techniques that we used? Are they getting out the forest more? What's that experience been for them, and how is it helping? Sorry, I'm on medication that makes my mouth really dry, so this is just another stressor. Okay. So let me take you on a walk through the forest. So from now on, we're talking about you as participants, so we're going to start right at the beginning at your health and well-being. So let's put that up there. We know that these are factors that influence your health and well-being, the 3 at the top in particular. The rest I just put there because they're quite important too. So think about yourself. Think about what you do to support your biological health. Do you eat right? Do you exercise? What sort of exercise do you do? How much of it? And then what what aspects of that feed into your psychological well-being? So if you're running, that probably improves your mental health as well. Obviously, people might do meditating or something. You can think about what you do and how that interacts with mental health. And then there's the social support side of it. And obviously, you can think about, you seeing your friends, that interacts with your mental health as well. But also, you need to be mentally healthy and well enough to be able to leave the house to go and see your friends. So all of these things interact, and that's why it's important to look at all of them. You can think about it in terms of what would happen to you, but I'm just going to use an example to kind of go through what we're doing now. Say you run for your health and your mental health, and you hurt your ankle, so now you can't run anymore. So your psychological well-being maybe goes down a little bit because you're not feeling great, you can't run. Maybe that also means that you can't see your friends as much because you're feeling a bit down, or maybe you can't work as a waitress, so you don't have any money, so you kind of can't go out with your friends. Or even just things like your ankle's sore, so you can't catch a bus to go and see people, you can't go see your doctor. And so something very small can impact all of these things. And then there's obviously the big things like trauma, which impact all of these factors as well. So say that happens to you. We're looking at a guy with a sore ankle. Eventually, you don't know what else to do. Your life's kind of falling apart a little bit. So you approach PCCS and they're going to help you. So they're based in the community, and they look at biopsychosocial well-being. Being based in the community is important because that's a way for it to be accessible to people. The interventions are run in the community as well. So it means you don't have to see a doctor to kind of get a prescription for any of these things. People sometimes can't afford doctors. Obviously, if you're in a remote community, there might not be doctors there at all to help you try and access different services. And Indigenous people sometimes mistrust white doctors, so that can be another factor that makes this more accessible in other ways of accessing care. So you come to PCCS and they start looking at different ways that they can help you. So you've got your sore ankle, maybe they set you up in a yoga class. So they're looking at your biological well-being. It's an easy way to stretch and feel better. Maybe they set you up with a counsellor to look at your mental health. They might also set you up in something like an art class. And then obviously, again, this is feeding into your social well-being, and then they might set you up in a coffee class as well. So they just kind of work with you to make sure we're accessing all of this, and this is what social prescribing is. Then they say to you, we've got this new thing called forest therapy, and that might do all three of those things. It might improve your biological, psychological, and social well-being. That's why we care about it. And you go, yeah, I'm totally going to sign up for that. So now you have a long wait. So as I said, all participants do a 5-week waiting period. So they do their first quantitative assessment, and then they wait 5 weeks. After that, you come to information day. On that day, you meet up with all the other participants. There might be probably 6 or 7 of you in a group. During that time, basically, we found that people weren't coming to the intervention because they were too anxious, was kind of the main thing that was making people just not show up on the day. So this intervention day, we show you lots of things about where we're going, what to bring, what to pack. And the more you know about something, the less anxious you are about it. We also found that transport was a big issue for people, so we started this information day. It's a week before, and there's lots of community transport people can access in the Gold Coast, and so we assist them in trying to access those services just to kind of get rid of some of those barriers. So once that's done, you come to your first walk. How exciting! So the first thing you'll notice is, once again, it's accessible. So most of the walks we do around the area, you can have a wheelchair along the whole walk. They also can be, the walk locations can be changed depending on the needs of the participants as well. Before you start your first walk, you do your your second quantitative assessment. So that's the end of the control period and the start of the intervention period. That assessment works for both of those things. Okay, so let's do this. Beautiful, beautiful forest. No, go back. Okay. So what we're going to do now is just like a 2-minute little nature-based meditation, just because it's fun and nice. You don't have to interact with me at all, though. So what we're going to do is just put both your feet on the floor. Okay. And your hands in either your lap or on the hand rests, whatever's comfortable for you. Sitting up nice and straight. Take a nice big breath in and out. Feel your shoes on the floor connecting. Feel the chair behind you, supporting you and underneath you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a deep breath in, and when we breathe out, we're going to either shut your eyes or look down at the floor. I'm going to look down at the floor too, so I'm not just watching you, okay? So big breath in, looking down at the floor, shutting your eyes. So what I want you to do is imagine a place in nature that you really love. And it can be somewhere that you've been, or it can be somewhere that you make up. Now just look around you and see what you can see. What kind of trees can you see? Is it big forest trees? Is it palm trees? Is it really dark? Are you under a canopy? Or is it really light? Is there a lot of light dappling through? What sort of colours can you see now? Are they very dark greens? Are they bright greens? If you're at the beach, what colour is the water that you can see? Now what can you hear? Are there birds chirping? Are the waves lapping? Can you hear the air rushing through the trees? And what can you feel? Is the sun on your back? Is the wind blowing and hitting you? Maybe you can feel sand underneath your feet. Right, so just think about that for a minute. Just imagine yourself there. All right, you can take a nice deep breath in and out. All right, now this time we're going to have a big breath in, and then when we're breathing out, we're going to slowly open our eyes and come back to the room. Okay. All right. Okay, well, I'm definitely calmer now, so that's good. Yep. Okay, so the idea of that, obviously, that's a really nice meditation to do, but it's also kind of what we're aiming for in forest therapy. We want to use all your senses, completely submerge you in the natural environment. That's obviously very calming. It allows you to kind of reflect on what's been going on in your life. It allows a lot of healing. So yeah, it's just full immersion in the environment. So going on with what we do on a forest therapy walk. So we also do, I said we do different activities where people cooperate. So one of those is an artwork. So you walk around and you go and find different leaves that you like, or different branches and different things. And then you come back together and you kind of arrange it and you talk about what you've done and kind of what it looks like. You also do lots more sensory activities. So we get you to, you might touch different textures, so different barks, or you might lie on the ground and look up at the dappled light. Yeah, so just a bunch of different activities that we do. At the end of each walk, we do a tea ceremony, and so that you have a cup of tea. It's pretty cool. We're using Australian natives, so you're drinking it and kind of having that connection to the ground as well. During the tea ceremony, you talk amongst yourselves, or you talk to the group and talk about, kind of what you experienced and what the walk was like for you and what you liked about it. So again, just that bonding and sharing with other people. So, that's an old slide, sorry. Okay. So you do 5 more walks, and they all have that structure. Oh, you do 4 more walks, sorry, so that's 5 in total. At the end of your final walk, you do your final quantitative assessment. So then that's the end of your intervention assessment.
1 minute.
Thank you. Okay, yep. Then you have a certificate ceremony. So everyone gets to come back. Because people have severe and complex mental illness, it's really hard for them to do anything or attend anything often. So giving them a certificate really acknowledges the fact that this was actually a very difficult experience for them. They get to see everyone else that they were in intervention with. So again, hopefully helping with their socialisation. This is also the final point. They do the quantitative assessment one last time, and this is our follow-up thing. Then they do a telephone interview with me. The data that I'm about to show you is just for a few of those. At this point, when I wrote this, we'd only had 3 people do it, and now I did 7 a couple of days ago here. So it's very, very preliminary data, but just a few cool things that people have said. So the one thing was people have said that they continue to use the mindfulness mindfulness skills that they've learned outside of the intervention. So obviously when they're walking around, if they see a tree or whatever, they stop and do it. In that way, they're also teaching other people. So a lady yesterday said that she takes her husband, or whatever, takes her husband on walks with her, and she teaches him those skills and mindfulness skills. Another one said that she has a daughter doing a HSC and she gets so anxious she can't do anything. And so this woman sits with her daughter and helps her go through mindfulness skills to help her get through that. Something that's pretty cool that's coming out of the research is that the difference, a lot of our participants do art classes as well. And so I'm just kind of saying this because obviously this is the audience for it. And so the art classes, I'm seeing how the group dynamics really make a difference. So some people say in the forest therapy you get to talk, but in the art classes they don't like it because you sit there quietly and no one says anything and you just draw and then you can't get out of your head. But then other people have said the reverse, that they didn't speak at all in forest therapy, but in the art classes they really loved it because everyone's talking and chatting. And then a gentleman who had ADHD, he found that the forest therapy was too slow and he just couldn't concentrate at all. But then for the art classes, he found that a lot better because it's much more interactive. So it's just interesting coming out that it's actually, I think, going to end up being a lot about the group dynamics that go on these walks together. Okay, implications. It's an easy intervention to run. You run it in the community. It's free to run. It's scalable. It's holistic. Yay, forest therapy. That's it. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Everyone clap now, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamsin. Excellent. Questions or comments?
Why 5 weeks?
So we had to pick a number. There's no data on how long it is an intervention like really worth. People do want to research that. We actually started with 10 weeks, but we found that participants were just dropping out too much. And in terms of resources, it just got too hard. So along the way, we've made quite a lot of changes to make it feasible.
There was a question at the back. Mark, did you have a question?
Just a comment, I really enjoyed that. Well done.
Thank you.
I saw you started off a little bit tense, but then when you went through that practical meditation session, which you actually took me on a journey, I was like at the spit, I felt the waves on my face, I saw the trees on the other side and saw the lights.
Amazing.
And then you were calm after you showed your actual research in practice. And I think that's very impactful and learned a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? And even I noticed that too when I was doing the meditation. I suddenly in the middle slowed down a lot. I was like, all right, this is supposed to be a slow, calm thing. And not Tamsin panicking.
Yeah, it was lovely to have a 2-minute meditation in there. Yeah, it was marvellous. Yeah.
I'd just like to congratulate you, Tamsin, and I just wanted to know, did you do any research on the Japanese style of forest therapy to influence your program?
Yes, so it's definitely based on that. My supervisors and the person who's running the intervention had gone to Japan in the past and done all their forest therapy there. So that very much influenced how it's run now. And there is an international forest therapy organisation who teach in a very specific way, and it's a kind of proper manualised thing. And that's what our guides use. So it is kind of a structured thing.
Thank you. And then as part of your research program, do you see where it, or have you found that there is some networking where this program can reach more further afield in the community or across Australia? Or even different industries?
So forest therapy is more or less brand new in Australia. There's not a lot of it run. But even within the organisation that we're working with, we're trying to go to reach a bigger client base than them. So he's got people who are outpatients at mental health facilities, and there's youth groups that are kind of having a bit of a hard time. So within that organisation, we are trying to expand further. Also, social prescribing is actually very new in Australia as well, but slowly there's more projects being developed along the way. And so I'm part of a group who discuss and meet every, I don't know, month or whatever and talk about the different programs that they're running. So social prescribing obviously is very kind of linked to this holistic, easy to implement intervention. So I'm hoping through that as well, we can start seeing it more.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Tasmin. Excellent.